How often do we settle for just halfway? Halfway committed, halfway honest, halfway alive even, and then wonder, why doesn't anything satisfy me? These are the questions we're going to answer today. I'm Justin Gates, your host, and my co-host today, as always, is Michael.
Hey, guys.
And you're listening to the new Ashla Podcast. We have a good show today. They're all good. We have a great show today. It's a topic I've been wanting to touch upon. I wanted to do it a while back, but all these other things we just kept putting these other things that were kind of coming at us, right? And we were trying to keep up with things. But this is a show probably of all, like most of my pet peeves rolled into one. So it might be interesting, Michael.
Oh, I'm already bracing for it. There's a lot of gold just going through these notes.
Oh, well, it's something that I always do with not just my students, but people in my life when they come half-stepping. I like to say, don't come half-stepping this way. You turn your ass around and you come back with a do or do not, right? I've told you before, don't half-ass it, Michael. You either do it and you're like, well, I'm trying. Well, that whole do or do not, there is no try. What that's saying is don't bring half measures, right? Doesn't mean don't try, because we all try and we fail and we get back up and we try again. That's not, it's probably bad wording, but what he was saying there was don't half step.
Yeah.
Don't half step. So we see these half measures everywhere and we all do them. I do them. About a year ago, I had like 13 half-written books in my, remember I was talking to you about this. It was probably, well, maybe not a year ago, but towards the end of last year and at the beginning of this year, I went through and I literally just, where I had like 13 files of everything, and I had all these half-written books and stuff, and I was half-assing it really bad. And I said, so what did I do? I went through and I cleaned everything out, and I would read each file and say yes or no. If it was a yes, then I finished it. If it was a no, it went right in the trash can.
Yeah. Well, I think when it comes to this thing, I mean, we are so driven for efficiency. Psychologically, we want to find the easiest path we can go with things. And so often it's like we start building something because we have that dopamine, we have that drive kicking in whenever we start something new. And as soon as that starts to tucker out, it's really hard for us to meet ourselves halfway because now we actually have to try. Now we have to motivate ourselves, and we can't rely on the excitement of something to help us pursue forward. I know I was guilty of this for most of my life. Is I would have all these things I would halfway start, and then I would just tucker out, and it's like, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. But these half measures hold us down. And when we hold back, that holds us down. So, my question is to everyone today, how often do you move through life only doing things half committed? And this could be committed to your dreams, or committed to your relationships, or committed to your work, or committed to a goal, right? And I would wager that probably most of us, this is something we talk about. We talked about this before when you were talking about New Year's resolutions. Right? Yeah. Just like, there was a really bad stat that was like literally within weeks, just a couple of weeks, like what was it, like just a big chunk of people just fall off of those.
Yeah, I think it's by the first month, 90% of people fail on their New Year's resolutions.
Crazy. That's crazy. But, when we do half measures, and when you start to look at this in your life, you'll start to see you're doing everything half truths, just not showing up completely. And that's what we're going to get into today. And we're going to touch upon different areas. We're going to touch upon our spiritual practices, relationships, goal setting, and seeing those through. So I would say that for a lot of us, these half measures come from a place of fear, like fear of failure or fear of rejection, or fear of not just failure, but fear of success too, which is ironic, right? Fear of taking full responsibility for ourselves and for the things that we say we're going to do. And these half measures, they do feel safe, It's an illusion, but they chain us to being mediocre, don't
Yeah. Well, it's like the comfort zone, right? All these things, especially like relationships. I think back to when I was going through my rough relationship, and I slowly started canceling on friends who would make plans to the point I stopped making plans because it'd be these half commitments. I wouldn't follow through on what I was saying I was going to do. And not only does that impact the relationship, but it impacts our self esteem.
Yeah.
And it's just like, there's so many areas in our life where we don't even realize it because, again, we crave efficiency. So, I mean, it's like, how many of you guys listening go to work and you might have been driven, ready to go, wanting to learn everything you could when you got there. And then after 6 months, a year, you start sort of just doing the bare minimum, getting by because, you feel like you're not going to
Yeah.
actually accomplish anything or raise the ranks. You just sort of get complacent.
Yeah. You start to muddle, which brings me to the axiom that's going to anchor this episode today. Those who muddle through life will never understand it. Knowledge, wisdom, and enlightenment come only from a disciplined and contemplative mind. This axiom is a mirror, and let's hold this mirror up to this modern tendency toward distraction and half-hearted effort. I think that's part of it, being distracted. I get distracted a lot, and I really have to turn up the discipline sometimes, To muddle through life means to live reactively also, though. Because if we're not responding and we're just reacting, every little thing that floats in, every little problem that happens, you and I were talking about some fun things that are happening in our personal lives and in the personal lives of some of our loved ones. And it's just like everything was fine and then this thing blew in. So, but we can't react to that. We have to respond. Because when we react to everything, when we're just muddling, think of it like just drifting without a paddle, without any kind of direction. You're just, something catches your attention for a minute, but then it's gone because there's the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And every time we move without intention, we chase things without clarity, without purpose. We speak without being present. We listening, we hear, but we don't listen. We're just creating dissonance and noise instead of harmony. So this axiom tells us that the disciplined and contemplative mind represents a full measure of our being, integrity, wholeness, right? It doesn't mean perfection, as I always like to say. It means presence over perfection. Say it with me.
Yeah.
Presence over perfection, right? It means slowing down long enough to breathe, to think, to feel wisely, and choose deliberately. Make that deliberate choice. What's the next course of action? And I won't get into this, but you and I just had a conversation before we sat down and record, and that's kind of what we talked about. You and I both, we need to make sure we're pausing and we're calibrating and we're making our choices deliberately based on the things we can control. So this is where wisdom grows. This axiom tells us this is where wisdom grows, not in haste, not in fear, but in full awareness. And it reminds us that living halfway robs us of true understanding. Yeah. So we have to be fully devoted to the things we set our mind to. First,
100%.
To the moment, our presence, to integrity, to our purpose. These things unlock enlightenment.
Well, I think one of the things that's really so sad about the truth to this is, and I know I've dealt with this myself, is so many people, when they get to this stage of muddling along, letting life take them where it goes, things compound. You start neglecting here, and the next thing you know, you're alone. You got things burning around you, and you don't even know where to start putting out the fires, and you knew that fire was starting. But yeah, it's a dangerous game to play when you allow life to dictate the terms of when you have to act.
Yeah. So let's talk about the agreements that are going to anchor this episode. We have the axiom. Let's talk about the agreements. Responsibility is the first one.
Well, responsibility, this is the responsibility to our lives, to our authenticity, to our nobility is the word that comes to mind, but that's not what I'm looking for. Our values.
Mm-hmm.
It is up to us to show up for ourselves and for those around us consistently and effectively.
Half measures are a form of avoidance, aren't they?
Yeah.
And we can't be responsible for avoiding everything, or we're trying to avoid everything. Because if we commit only partially to something, we do our best to avoid the full responsibility of not just our power, but of our influence. And this agreement calls us, of course, responsibility calls us to meet life head on, call it out, face it, right? To own our choices, to own our energy, to gracefully and graciously accept the consequences of the things we do. So this is how we honor our power as co-creators to this existence. What about courage?
I think courage is one of the most important ones for this because, again, as you muddle through life, as you muddle through different things in your life, your comfort zone shrinks, and it takes courage. If you let that shrink too much, it takes courage and dedication to break free, to start taking the action you have been refusing to up until this point, and to show up consistently. You know, there are days where we do this podcast and it's like we've had a rough day going on, but you know what? We have the courage to show up and do our best and give our best selves to the show. And that is courage.
Yeah. And to each other.
Yeah.
To each other. Like, you know, we always spend, 15, 20, 30 minutes talking. How have you been the last couple of days? Because we generally meet up to do the show, and no matter how bad of a day I'm having, I got to show up for you. And no matter how bad of a day you're having, you got to show up for me too. And yeah, that is responsibility and courage. Where does truth fit into this? Let's talk about our ethos before we move on to the episode. Talk about the things that are anchoring us today.
Truth is also very important because you got to be honest with yourself. I see so many people struggle with this, where they are in this lull in life, where they're muddling along, and they're just blinding themselves to why they're where they're at and the steps they need to take control of their lives.
Yeah.
And if you can't be honest with yourself, if you can't be honest with others about where you're at, what's going on. I mean, we were talked in the beginning of the episode of half-truths.
Yeah. 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 This comes from self-deception, these half-truths, these half steps, these half, I like to say, half-stepping. Because a lot of times, and this goes back to something you said a minute ago, but pretending that we're giving our all when we know we're holding back. It's the whole fake it till you make it, which is absolute horse crap. I would never, ever, ever tell you, oh man, don't worry, just fake it till you make it. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Probably the second dumbest thing I've ever heard. I'm sure there's something more dumb than that, but
it's definitely up there.
It's up there. It's up there. But truth cuts through the fog. It cuts through the illusion. It wipes it away, and it helps us ask ourselves questions like, what am I avoiding? How awesome would my life be if I stopped hesitating all the time?
Yeah.
Right? Coming from a place of truth and in pursuit of the truth, it requires courage, but we have to learn to see ourselves without distortion. Of course, there's love. Love in half measures is what?
Yeah.
Not love at all. I've said this before. You either love somebody or you don't. Truly. If you can't accept a person that you love without condition, then do you actually love them? That's a bold question, and I ask it all the time. But I truly mean, if I tell you that I love you, you better believe with all your heart that I actually mean it, because I don't place any kind of conditions on that. I don't love perfect people, because there are no perfect people. So if I love someone, it's fully. It's never at a half measure. And if you have to put expectations, especially those unspoken ones, and conditions on somebody, do you really love them? Do you? I mean, that's kind of an asshole thing to say, Justin. Well, it's true. And sometimes I can't say things without being a little spiky about it,
Yeah. One thing I got to add to this, and it kind of ties into the ethos, is people beginning in relationships. I see a lot of people who have these insecurities that pop up when they first start dating. And there's this refusal to be vulnerable or to push beyond their comfort zones. And they wonder why they can't find someone, why they're constantly hitting the same wall they've always hit without stopping and realizing that wall is there. Is it a fear of commitment? Is it a fear of vulnerability? Is it a fear of intimacy?
Is it attachment disguised as care?
Yeah.
True love asks for wholeness, never for protection or for perfection. When we love people fully, and that is including ourselves, we dissolve that illusion of separation. So we have to do it fully. Integrity, of course, is literally the antidote to this show today, half measures, because we can't be half a person. We can't be segregated. We can't be disconnected. We have to be whole. We have to have integrity, right? And No kind of power on earth, whether it's spiritual, mental, physical, none of those can flow through cracked and fractured and separated channels. They can't. They can't. So the teaching here today is clear. Half measures are a thief of your growth, a thief of your connection, a thief of your integrity. They cost us clarity. They cost us connection. They cost us power. And, the light cannot fill a vessel that's only halfway open, Michael, right? So let's move on to our first segment today. The first thing we're going to talk about is a trap. The segment's not a trap, but we're going to talk about a trap. The trap of haste. The trap of haste and impatience. Oh boy. Now, this is something that every single one of us, when we start something new, when we start a new path, when we start a new job, when we start a new relationship, man, we want to get to the good stuff. We want to get there. We want to feel good because it's awesome to feel good, to get that dopamine and all that hitting and all those synapses firing and everything. Your nervous system feels, invincible.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and it's such a trap too, because you look in society today, we live in an age of instant gratification, which is exactly what breeds this type of behavior. It's like I can either work really hard for a long period of time and feel good about the work I'm doing, or I can feel good right now by putting on a television show or having that drink. And it's such an easy trap because, again, our minds are constantly looking for efficiency. And the efficiency to feel good, it's easy to fall into that trap and become a slave to it.
Yeah. Because that's the world we live in. We live in a world that's addicted to shortcuts. The magic pills, the instant gratification, the quick fixes, the shortcuts, right? You ever played Mario Kart and you want to get ahead of everybody, so you take the shortcuts every time if you know where they're at, but you don't tell anybody where they're at. You just do them, right?
Deal.
We all want that. We all, when we start something new, we want to do it because, yeah. That's all this stuff's all slow and it's all kind of mundane and boring. I want to get to the good stuff. We want to start a job and then we want to hurry up and get promoted to be the boss. Just things don't work that way. Because when we move in haste like this, when we hurry the process, or we try to force the process, we try to block the flow and redirect it into what we think is best, we skip out in depth. We don't actually get deep. We start cutting corners. We start avoiding discipline, and we settle. Yes, we settle for kind of this surface level gratification. And it's a trap because it feels like we're moving, right? We're still moving. It feels like it feels like movement, but really it's shallow. And what happens to trees with shallow roots, Michael?
They don't grow.
They don't grow very well, and they fall at the slightest wind. The first hard thing that comes at you, it's going to knock you over. So we have to learn to want things without trying to skip the important stuff. Even if we don't think it's important, we have to have trust. We have to have faith. Because when we want results without process, transformation without discipline, or wisdom without contemplation and retrospection, none of that stuff lasts. You're building a temple on shifting sands.
Yeah. When you see it so often, it's like, it's why purpose is so important, but no one has purpose. And the reason for that is none of them have spent enough time with themselves to find that. To start building that momentum, we need to live for more than ourselves. And often we're usually motivated by, if I start this business, I'll make a lot of money. Let me get into a relationship so I can feel love. Right. And it's missing all the important stuff that really makes that a foundational thing in life.
Yeah. And our path of Ashla is not about speed. I've said this many times, and I will continue to say it because people will arrive when they arrive in their own time, in their due time. It's not a race, right? Our path is about alignment, period. Presence, alignment. It's about moving with clarity. It's about moving with intention and balance. And we talk about patience a lot, and it's important to kind of remind everyone that patience is never wasted time. It feels like it, but it's not wasted. You're flexing a muscle. You're strengthening that very important system in your path. Think of them as, instead of wasted time, think of it as an investment, right? In something that will last once you get there. So, we can want speed and we can want instant answers and instant healing and instant success, and we can want all that all we want to. But impatience blinds us to the truth that all growth unfolds in its own time. Every spiritual path, not just ours, every theological path, every relationship, every transformation, every bit of alchemy that we try to perform will unfold in its own time.
Oh, that's so well said. What's that Stoic quote
Which one?
about the fig? If you
About
ask for a fig, you must first let it grow, then you must let it bear fruit, then you must let it ripen.
Yeah. Or if you're like Jesus, you just curse the damn tree because you're like, I'm hungry, and
Yeah.
you shouldn't do that. But so when we feel that urgency to fix it now, what are we going to do, Michael? We're going to pause.
Yeah.
Pause. And we're going to, okay. Let me do that. I got to do that another 20 times because this is just all over me, right?
And sometimes it takes that.
Sometimes it takes that, right? And ask yourself, am I moving from fear or from faith? All these F words. There's some good F words and some bad F words. Faith is a good one. So, and the difference between this question, am I moving from fear or am I moving because of fear or am I moving because of faith? The difference in that answer will determine whether you're building something that's lasting or something that is fleeting. Another F word, fleeting. So the axiom that kind of ties us into this segment, what is done in haste will perish. What is done with patience will endure. The demand for immediate progress will produce slow results. And it's spot on. I don't even need to explain that one. It's spot on. We have to, this is kind of a lesson in spiritual physics. I don't even know if that's a thing, but I'm making it up as we go. Here we go. You ready?
Hit me.
Collapses potential, and all things work in cycles. Talk about this a lot. Everything's in a cycle, right? Even the bad stuff. That rumination could be bad cycle. Planting and nurturing and harvesting, these cycles that we're in. When we try to force things by being impatient and being hasty, that interrupts those cycles. And it replaces that natural ebb and flow with friction. And what happens when things start banging into each other? Then it creates more problems, right? So again, true progress is not measured by at which the speed we do them, but in our intention, in our presence,
In our consistency.
Again, patience is not passive. It is trust in divine timing. So when you find yourself forcing outcomes or wanting to them or demanding quick results, magic pills, remember this: what grows slowly lasts long. What grows, think of a tree. The biggest trees you can think of, they take some forever. There are trees that have been around for 10 years that are barely taller than me, and it's going to take them another 100 years to be really big and strong. So just because it takes you a long time to do something, that doesn't mean you're failing. It doesn't mean that you're falling behind. You are just unfolding at the pace you were meant to, so that things in front of you can be moved out of your way so that you can continue growing.
It's like I mentioned the neurochemistry earlier. Have patience with yourself as you cultivate patience. I know when we first started my training, patience was one of the areas that I struggled with most. I just wanted to be healed. I wanted to be done with all the pain, all the bull crap going on inside of me. And you had to constantly remind me that patience is what I needed to work through this, because without that, anything I did was just going to be built on sand.
Yes. And sand tilts and it moves and it shifts. That's why we don't build things on sand. At least we don't build things that are meant to last a lifetime. I would never build a house on sand. You shouldn't either. So another type of half-stepping is indecision. Another pet peeve. I make decisions. I don't always make the right decision, but I will make a decision because I have to do. Can't just half-step it, right?
Well, I think this ties into self-trust. Again, this is something I see a lot of people struggle with. I've struggled with it a bunch in my past. And it came down to doubting our choices and worrying we'll make the wrong choice.
Yeah.
But we need to be able to be decisive, even if it's the wrong answer. We need to trust in our own judgments so that we can act instinctively, intuitively.
Yeah. because we're always trying to be cautious. So we're always trying to think it over. And we tell ourselves that waiting just a little longer will give us clarity. And that's different than having patience and trust. This is, again, a form of forcing. Now we're trying to force ourselves to wait for an outcome that we wanted or that we are expecting. And this is where we don't make decisions because that thing never happens. It never comes because we cannot force everything. So, and agonizing about something and not acting, I might feel safer. We say, well, I'll take the middle road. That's not balance. When we talk about balance and harmony, we're not actually talking about sitting on the fence about things. We have to choose. We have to choose our path, our side sometimes. This traps us. And it's a really costly half measure, right? It's a really costly one because it actually consumes time and energy. And because, let me ask you this. Have you ever put off making a decision only to think about that decision you haven't made over and over and over again? Right? And what's worse is you'll start rehearsing scenarios. You'll replay it, and then you'll try a new thing, and you'll cycle through these what ifs, and you burn the mental fuel, but you never go anywhere. You don't go anywhere like that. And then you fall into some rumination, and now you're second guessing the fact that you didn't decide. So it's not like, ruminating about a decision you made, right? That's making a decision and not standing by it, despite the consequences. But this is even worse. You're ruminating about a decision you actually didn't make, right?
Well, and I think you brought up a really important point with this. I mean, it is the lack thereof action. And I see so many people I've worked with personally where they know what they want, whether that's connection, whether that's a better job, whether that's a better relationship or a relationship. And it's like you're not going to find any of those things sitting on your couch wondering when will be the right time to act. Mm-hmm. I tell all of them, the right time to act is right now. Yes. And even if it doesn't work out, at least you got the momentum going. At least you know that job that you didn't get was not the job for you.
Right.
But you can't keep idealizing what you want and not take any action to get it. Because I was one of those people too. I would have all these great ideas and I wouldn't act on any of them. Like, you know what? Like, let me wait till my finances are in a better spot. Let me wait till I don't have this drama going on in my life. And I'd always have some excuse on why I couldn't act on my visions or my dreams. And often it's exactly that. It is just excuses we tell ourselves to avoid the discomfort of action. Because the magic you're looking for is in the work you are avoiding.
That's right. That's right. That's a Michaelism. And because while you're hesitating, you do lose out on opportunities. You do weaken your relationships. And that moment to act fades away. A knight knows when to act and when to step away. That's the goal, is to get yourself to a point where it's effortless to make a decision. Yes, no, here, there. But you're always choosing. You're always choosing, and you're graciously and gratefully accepting the consequences because you have trust in yourself. And you have trust that you made the best decision you can. Again, this is not about making the perfect decision. It's about making the decision. And now when we agonize endlessly over and over, but never decide, we go from that field of potentiality, like I'm fond of saying, into that void. We become prisoners of that. Every door, and this, you get what you give, right? So if you're always half and everything, all your doors of opportunities will be half open. You might be able to see through them. That'd be really cool, but you can't walk through because they're not all the way open. Because you're not
equivalent exchange.
Right, equivalent exchange, exactly. So the axiom that ties into this segment is agonizing over a situation to resolution provides limited gain and comfort. The price you pay long-term for not letting go can be great. This endless mental circling over and over and over and over again does not lead you to peace, does it?
Oh, it's so self-destructive. I mean, again, a lot of this has to do, again, with the comfort zone. And the smaller our comfort zone is, the louder our inner critic is. And it's just like when we let life cave in around us, we feel helpless and trapped, and it becomes harder and harder to take those actions.
Yeah. The path of Ashla calls us to clarity and courage here. Decisions will never guarantee perfection, because we don't even know what that is, because we've never seen a perfect person. We've never seen a perfect choice or perfect decision. And it doesn't matter. But they will guarantee progress. Action begets progress, right? So think about every unmade decision and how much weight that carries. Think about every time you avoided a choice, what was the cost of that? We're called to courage here, not in absence of fear, but the willingness to move through it with grace. When in doubt, just remember this: the light cannot guide what refuses to move. Let go, decide, make a choice, and then let the light of creation carry you where you will be, based on whatever it is and based on the consequences of that. But remember, nothing is bad if we consider it a teacher.
Right. What I think an important thing for anyone listening is like, if you are someone who is struggling with this, someone who is stuck in that comfort zone trap, don't go for elaborate big actions. Don't make your goal to start a business. If you've been stuck in your comfort zone for so long, make it small steps. Make it, I'm going to go out there and try to talk to people about the business I'm interested in. I'm going to go to an event that is geared towards what I'm interested in building. You got to take manageable steps that can help you build that self-trust, because self-trust erodes over time the more we do this. So we have to take consistent small steps to slowly rebuild.
Now, I threw a little bonus in here that you didn't see on your notes. I don't think anyway. Let's talk about Justin's biggest pet peeve. Can you guess what my biggest pet peeve is? Have I ever said it to you before?
I don't think you have.
Passive aggressiveness.
Yeah.
I can't stand passive aggressiveness, because what that says, when someone's being passive aggressive to me, that's a half measure. And what they're saying to me is, I don't trust you enough to believe that you're going to react properly to what I'm going to do or say, or to something I need to say, right? Passive aggressiveness is the language of these half measures. It is the language that half measure speaks, right? Because you're speaking without speaking. You're not owning your actions. And instead of just directly expressing truth, you're trying to navigate it in such a bizarre way where you're sidestepping it. You're dropping your little hints, or, it could be, and in a relationship, it could be withdrawing affection. We talked about this on the narcissist show that just hit today. But you are driving people crazy with this. Stop.
Be direct.
And why do we do this? Because, of course, it makes us feel safe. Right? Because I don't want conflict. I don't want confrontation. Because when I'm confronted or when I'm in conflict, I may be rejected, or they're not going to respect me, or whatever. And we do risk comfort when we are honest, right? So instead of leaning into that with courage and with integrity, we settle for this kind of form of communication, because we think it avoids risk, but it does not. And it certainly, when you do that, it does avoid resolution, doesn't it?
Very much so. And it accumulates debt. People know when you're being passive aggressive, and they won't call you out on it because obviously you don't want to talk about it. And slowly
I will every time. Yeah. Yeah.
The resentments build.
I'll just be like, look, time out. And you guys can ask Heather. Ask Heather. Heather is very passive aggressive at times. And I will say, hold on, time out. Can you say that to me again, but not passive aggressively? Because I want to know where you are actually coming from. Because if I did something wrong, which is totally within the realm of possibility, right? Right?
100%.
I want to know exactly. I got big shoulders. You can put this on me and you'll feel better afterwards. But so yes, I will call it out every damn time. Not only because it annoys me, and it's kind of disrespectful to be passive. At least I believe so. If you're being passive aggressive to someone, then you're half stepping, man. And if you're half stepping here, if you're half stepping in a confrontation or an argument or whatever, if you're half stepping there, then that means you only half trust me. And if you only half trust me, then you really don't love me fully. And I want you to know that I love you fully. And I want to know that you love me too. And that comes with trusting me 100%, that I'm not going to flip out.
Yeah.
which I normally don't. Have I ever flipped out? Yes, I have. Yes, I have. Because sometimes I get my feelers hurt too. But passive aggressiveness is a half step, and we must live full measure. This includes how we communicate.
Yeah. If we can't be sincere, if we can't be authentic with what's going on, then there can be no resolution because we need that level of vulnerability. And I think for a lot of people that is what it is. I think people are afraid to put themselves out there because they're afraid of being rejected or they're afraid of what's bugging them being rejected. And it causes them to lock down. And some people will react that way. But that's why you need to choose your circle closely, because I know with the close people in my life, I can be blunt. I can be honest about things that upset me. And when that happens, we create resolution, understanding, or compromise.
Yeah. So let's talk about the dangers of being inflexible, because half measures don't always look like hesitation. Sometimes they go the opposite way to the other end of the spectrum and they become rigidity. We cling in too tightly to one way of doing things. When we refuse to adapt or to move from a different perspective, or when we don't allow ourselves to let go of control here, then we get really hard and rigid, and now we're inflexible. And that's kind of the other side of this, of these half measures, because, well, you know what? I'm gonna take my ball and go home. To hell with you. I'm not listening to you. You're not doing it my way, so we're not gonna finish this, right?
Yo,
Michael, you didn't follow my notes to the letter. Show's over. I'm done.
get out of here.
Right?
Yeah. No, and I know a handful of people like this, and it's
I think we all know a
detrimental.
lot of people like this, yeah, and including ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, at times. It's one thing I've tried to be cautious about because I've noticed the more rigid I hold on to my own beliefs, feelings, people, whatever it is, the more inflexible I become, the more I fail to see the full picture or the solutions outside of what I'm currently seeing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're right, it is resolved around control. So many people crave that control. I need it my way. I need it right now. And through that, it pushes people away. It creates no opening for better options or compromise.
Yeah. Yeah. And it certainly masquerades as strength. I'm strong because I hold strong to my beliefs and to my truths with an iron fist, right? And these kind of half measures aren't born of being lazy or being afraid, or maybe, having a bag of squirrels for a brain like me sometimes, where I see something float by and I want to run after it. This comes from clinging too tightly to a single way of thinking, a single way of doing, or a fixed identity, or refusing to let go of this. And this, I'm going to call everybody out on this one, including me. Holding on to some old plan that hasn't served you from the beginning.
Yeah.
But you still won't let go
It's
of it.
gonna work, dang it.
It will work. I can fix this. I can change it.
Yo.
Look, all too often we confuse stubbornness for discipline. There's another key point here. Discipline and stubbornness are two different things. And we're confusing control for stability. But again, what are we doing? We're ignoring and not trusting in that natural evolution, in that natural flow. Danger is everywhere. Axiom of light. Danger is everywhere. Manifesting an inflexible attitude lends a hand to destruction. Life is movement, Mike. Life is action. Life is in cycles, but they're always moving. And this axiom teaches us that safety is not found in that rigidity. It's found in that adaptability, the wisdom of knowing when to bend and when to sway, right?
Yeah. Well, it's like, I mean, one of the greatest weaknesses I see within people is so many people, and myself included, it's all about being aware and figuring out where these are in our lives. But when we define ourselves, when we decide to say we are a certain way, so many people become so rigid in trying to rewrite that narrative. It's that whole restoring, right? I mean, it's, again, I see it in the dating scene a lot, where there's a lot of guys who struggle with putting themselves out there and being assertive in dating. And it's like, they just, I have trauma, I have insecurity, I'm not going to put myself out there, I'm just going to be rejected. And it's like, stop telling yourself that. Yes, you probably will be rejected more times than not.
Right.
But the more you do it, the more you're going to learn how to go about it. You can't keep trying to be the same person and expect different results.
Yeah. Growth requires flexibility, period. It does. Healing requires you to be flexible with all the things that you're going to have to face with your shadow. And if you're brittle, you will break. So we have to learn to develop this ability to pivot, to move without losing our center, to bend without breaking, to change form, to perform that alchemy while remaining true to our essence, true to our authentic essence, right? And this one hits a lot of people because the antidote to this is humility and openness and surrendering control of everything. That's what makes it difficult. So
when to trust the unknown.
Yes, we have to learn to not be afraid of the unknown first. You got to stop being afraid of the dark, right? You got to stop being afraid of the things you can't actually see. If you want to see them, you have to learn not to be afraid of them. Ask yourself, where am I clinging? Where am I clinging because of fear? What beliefs, identities, or old plans that we all think are going to work someday am I holding on to so tightly that I've stopped growing and evolving? A lot of people will say flexibility is a weakness. It's not. It is wisdom. It is wisdom.
I'll never forget asking you about, and I forget what the topic we were talking about was, but you started going into why being grass is more important than being a tree. Because when you're a tree, if storms come, you'll bend, you'll break. But if you're grass, you can flow this way and that. You can adapt with the seasons, the times.
Yeah.
And it's so true about life, because the more you allow yourself to be flexible, to grow, to be adventurous, the more you can experience, the more you can learn, not just about life, but about yourself.
Yeah. And sometimes it's important to be a tree when we're standing for something, when we're standing in front of someone who is in harm's way. But there are times where we must be reeds. We must bend. Yeah, trees can withstand storms, but grass is around forever. Even when it dies, it still endures.
Yeah.
Right? So let's circle back to responsibility and integrity real quick, just to kind of start to come back full circle here. Because we are responsible for others. We have a sphere of influence. People look up to us. I don't care who you are. Somebody watches you and emulates you. Doesn't matter how big or small that sphere of influence is, we all have it. So these half steps, these half measures don't just affect us personally, especially when we have the responsibility of being influential to people as leaders or parents, as teachers or friends or brothers and sisters, right? The impact of our choices always extend outside of ourselves too. So when those who look to us for guidance receive only kind of half our effort or half of our attention, and we're not being sort of looking for, and we're not being whole, and we don't have any integrity, that harm multiplies beyond us, and then maybe to somebody that they have influence over, and so on and so forth, right? Good stuff multiplies, but so does bad stuff. So leadership requires full engagement. It does. No half measures there. Parenting requires your presence, not allowing yourself to be distracted all the time. Teaching demands clarity. Michael, how many times did you say, oh, man, I don't get what you're saying. I don't get what you mean.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, how about this? And if that didn't take, how about this? And there were times where I just couldn't figure out a way to help you see. So then I would say to you, Michael, if you were teaching this to me, tell me what you would say to me. And in that, I then find a way to deliver the lesson back to you, right? But you have to be present, wholly present. You have to be not distracted, I feel cool because I'm your teacher. So that feels cool, you know? Well, it is cool because Michael's a cool student to have, but it's not cool being a teacher.
Or at least that can't be your motivation. I mean, when it comes to showing up, we have to be able to, because I think another key point to this is it's not just being able to be there, to sit there, to be able to give your full self in this conversation, but it's to speak from a place of experience.
Yes.
And I think so many people get so wrapped up in their own understandings, their own readings, their own knowledge, without having any actual wisdom to give. Because the true way to change people's lives is to be an example,
Mm-hmm.
not just a sounding board that's constantly trying to give solutions without any experience.
Right. It's also important that you understand that no matter what level of influence you have over somebody, or how many you do have influence over, it is a sacred thing. You have sacred trust. When you hold power, you must also hold responsibility, period. Because it's a double-edged sword here, too. Half measures in these roles don't just limit our growth or theirs, but ours too. These things ripple out and then back again. That's just a way of things. Because this influence isn't about authority or control. It's about stewardship. Sometimes we have to tend to those who've been placed in front of us, who've been placed in our care, who've been placed in our trust. And if we do this half-heartedly, if we're not teaching without passion, listening without focus, or leading without compassion, and all these other beautiful poetic things I can say, we actually start to create harm through neglect. We must not be neglectful in our duties. If we can't do this fully and bring our best every time, which again will look different. Sometimes I can't bring you 80%, Michael. Sometimes I bring you 120 and you're like, whoa, 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 whoa. But other times I'm like, Michael, I only got like 40%, bro. So this is my best today, right? We have to be honest. We have to be compassionate. We have to be truthful. A position of influence is a position of responsibility. Axiom of light.
Good one too, because it's the truth. So often people in a position of influence don't care about anything but the control they have with that influence. But with the power of with you're in a position of influence, you can truly create the most amazing change, not just for yourself but for others. You can empower them.
Yeah, right. Well, we can. We definitely can. So this leads us into our last segment before we close things off today. The need for guidance and discernment. We all need guidance sometimes because these half measures thrive in confusion, do they not?
Most definitely.
Yeah. And when our mind is clouded, we will grab at whatever we can get our hands on. And usually that's just fragments of truth. Usually that's just fragments of things. And we're not wholeness. And in our rush to act on something or to fix something, we forget the wisdom of stillness, that sacred pause. Discernment is not hesitation, just like caution is not fear. But anything taken to the extreme could be a problem, right?
Right. Well, and impulsivity in itself can be such an issue when it comes down to this. I mean, this is why connection is so vital to our happiness and our success. We need people to help bounce ideas off of, to help us get out of our heads and get an outside perspective, because more often than not, if we're the only person we talk to about these ideas, we are tunnel vision at the end goal without seeing the potential pitfalls, not only in pursuing this goal, but within ourselves. And it doesn't mean go to your friends like, hey, tell me all the things that are bad about me, but it does mean, hey, I'm thinking about pursuing this. What would you recommend? What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, probably not do that, huh? You won't like what they hear.
It's like that whole roast me challenge.
Right. If they'll even tell you, if they're not passive aggressive, right? Discernment is not hesitation. It's more like conscious awareness, right? It's that ability to feel the difference between, as you said, impulse, but also intuition, fear and faith, and ego and guidance. You know, where are you being guided from? Ego or for something higher? From truth or illusion? Look, when you slow down to seek wisdom, you're inviting truth. You're inviting that light of creation in to help guide you toward that. You get what you ask for, right? You get what you put into it, but you also get what you ask for. Every great healer, every great teacher, every great warrior or mystic or whoever, whatever, has needed counsel. Everyone, even the strong, require mirrors and reminders and anchors. And this guidance can come from anywhere, whether that's through mentors or prayer or that small little voice that whispers funny little things in your head.
Yeah.
right?
Well, one thing I got to add to the mentor thing is it's just like I listened to, for when I first got into entrepreneurship, I listened to a lot of entrepreneur podcasts. And one of the things they always talked about is the importance of a mentor. And I have learned this working with you. But
Yeah.
it's like if there's an area you're passionate about, if there's somewhere you're struggling, find someone who has achieved the goals you want and learn from them. Humble yourself. There is no greater benefit you could add to your life than having someone by your side who has walked the path you are now trudging upon.
Yeah. Do you have anything closing you want to share?
Yeah, I brought this up earlier, but again, just like if any of this resonated with you, if you feel that you struggle with some of these things, most people do. Give yourself grace and be patient with yourself as you learn to cultivate better behaviors, better showing up more efficiently and effectively. It's not something that's going to happen overnight, but it's about showing up consistently. It's about trusting yourself and taking the steps you need to take charge of your life. And that is not an over the night process. Rome was not built in a day. So give yourself the same grace you would give anyone else you're giving advice to.
Nope, it's good advice. Our affirmations for today. I choose full measure over half measures. I give myself fully to what matters. Patience and discipline anchor me. What I build with care will endure. I release indecision and avoidance. Clarity and action guide my path. I honor my responsibility. My influence serves the light with integrity. I am not here to muddle through life. I'm here to live it with courage, wisdom, and purpose.
Beautiful.
And for our exercise today, I've been kind of sprinkling in those journal prompts throughout the whole show. So, it was an Easter egg hunt for you, but we're going to go on to the exercise. And that exercise today is from half measure to full measure. What's the first thing we got to do? Identify it. Identify the half measure. Take a few minutes of quiet reflection. And when you're ready, write down one area of your life where you've been kind of half-stepping, when you've been holding back, being passive-aggressive. It could be a relationship where you're avoided honesty, or a personal goal you've only kind of half pursued, or a habit you keep promising to change someday. Name it clearly. Call it out. Ask yourself, write this down. Where in my life am I giving only part of myself? What does that hesitation cost me in energy, peace, or purpose? Once we have identified that half measure, now it's time to clarify the full measure. Now write down what full measure would look like in that same area, that same spot of opportunity. Be honest. As always, be honest. Even if it feels uncomfortable, especially if it feels uncomfortable, then you know you're on the right track, right? So if you were to step fully into truth and commitment, responsibility here, what would it look like? And here's your prompt for that. If I acted with clarity and courage, what would I do differently in relation to your half measure? What is one action I've avoided that I know would move me forward? Step 3, we're going to commit. What a dirty word for some of us, huh? Commitment. We're going to commit to one action. Choose one concrete step, just one, that you can take this week and the next until you get it, to move you from the half measure to full measure. It should stretch you a little bit. You really should kind of feel the stretch on this one, right? But not overwhelm you. Don't go all super hardcore till you do a few of these. And trust me, if you're anything like me, I had a few of these half measures I had to kind of go through and turn into full measures. So you should feel a burn and a little bit of a stretch, but not be overwhelmed by this. Something in that stretch zone rather than like a panic zone, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Stay in that hot spot there. So for example, having one honest conversation you've been avoiding. Michael shared a story of that several episodes ago that even I felt kind of uneasy when, like, damn, I'm glad it wasn't me that had to have that conversation. Taking one concrete step toward a long delayed project, or saying no to something that just sucks the life out of you, sucks the marrow out of your bones. Those are just some examples, but write it down and set a specific day and time when you will do it and hold yourself accountable to that. And step 4, we're going to anchor this work with affirmation. I release half measures. I walk in clarity, in courage, and in light. What I begin, I commit to fully. Say that 1 billion times if you need to.
Well, this is such a powerful exercise because it really does highlight, again, it's like if you want to start a business, don't make your goal to go run out, get LLC, and go get your first customer. All right, what is one small actionable step within that's just slightly outside of your comfort zone? What is that one thing that'll stretch you a little bit to show up differently?
So we've talked about today half measures. We've talked about the cost of half measures, where they show up in haste, indecision, rigidity, avoidance, and even in the way we misuse patience or neglect. So to live fully means to commit fully. And that doesn't mean whatever that is, to anything, to all things, to everything, to truth, to growth, whatever it is. Because if we don't, if anything less than that, we're going to feel divided. And divided is to be disconnected, and disconnection is hell, right? The way of Ashla calls us to walk in wholeness and integrity, to give ourselves wholly to the work that is before us, that's in front of us, to the people entrusted in our care and entrusted to our service. So full measures doesn't mean perfection. Again, it means sincerity. It means integrity. It means that your discipline is rooted in love, and responsibility is rooted in humility. So when we choose full measures, we choose full life. You can't swim in the sea and not expect to swallow some water, right? So that doesn't mean we don't like swimming in the sea because we swallow a bunch of nasty salt water. That happens. That's life. So thank you so much for joining us today. If you have a chance, check out our website, check out our TikTok, check out our Instagram, our Facebook. Where else are we? Of course,
YouTube.
You're already on Spotify because you're listening to this, or over at Apple, or
maybe you are on YouTube.
Maybe you are on YouTube listening to this. So wherever you are listening to this, thank you so much. We love you. And with love and gratitude, ad lucem.
Ad lucem.